The knife of humiliation came not from the food on my plate, but from the words slicing across the dinner table. Asterisk. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us, where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos? And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us, what would you do in this situation? Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. Richard Hayes, my father, raised his glass with a smirk that carried more venom than celebration. His voice boomed through the dining room, bouncing off polished oak walls and crystal chandeliers. "She's still doing manual work," he declared, staring directly at me. His middle daughter, Madison. Forks froze midair. My sister Brooke let out a soft laugh, covering it with a sip of wine, while my brother Daniel leaned back in his chair, smirking like he had been waiting for this. "Manual labor," Richard repeated, shaking his head as if my existence was a tragedy. 29 years old and she's still scrubbing and lifting like some hired help. Imagine, when the rest of us are building legacies, Madison's just building calluses. The table erupted in muffled chuckles. My mother, Linda, lowered her gaze to her plate, her silence screaming complicity. Brooke leaned toward Jessica Miller, our cousin, and whispered loud enough for me to hear, "Maybe Madison can polish the silverware when we're done here." Jessica laughed, her diamond earrings glittering with each cruel shake of her head. Heat surged through my chest, but I sat perfectly still, back straight, face unreadable. Inside, my blood roared. Across the table, Andrew Miller joined in. "Brooks, right? Everyone has a role, I guess. Some of us lead, some of us mop up." The laughter was sharper now, carried by wine and cruelty. Even Uncle Robert let out a dry chuckle, while Aunt Karen looked on with poorly hidden satisfaction. I met each of their eyes, one by one, letting them see the storm brewing behind mine. But I didn't open my mouth. Not yet. Richard leaned back, satisfied with his performance. "Madison, maybe one day you'll thank us for reminding you what failure looks like." My sister Brooke smirked, adding salt to the wound. "Don't be so harsh, Dad. Not everyone was born for success. Some of us shine. Some of us serve." Her words landed like daggers. But I didn't flinch. I pressed my palms into my lap beneath the table, nails digging into my skin to ground myself. I kept my head high, my silence steady. Because silence wasn't surrender, it was power waiting to explode. They thought I was small, weak, beneath them. What they didn't know was that tomorrow morning, they'd step into a reality they couldn't laugh their way out of. Because when Ethan, my husband, opened the gates of our mansion to welcome them, their smirks would vanish. And in that silence, when their laughter died, that would be my revenge. Asterisk. Morning. Sunlight spilled across the marble floors of the coal estate, catching the edges of the massive glass doors that overlooked the garden. The mansion was alive with quiet elegance, the hum of the fountain outside, the gentle rustle of leaves carried by the morning breeze. And at the heart of it all, Ethan Cole stood tall in a tailored suit, his sharp jawline set with determination as he glanced toward me. His hazel eyes softened when they met mine. "You don't have to do this," he murmured. "You don't owe them anything." I straightened the lapels of my navy blazer, my voice steady. "I don't, but I want to. Last night was the last time I'll ever sit at their table in silence." Ethan's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Then let's make sure they never forget today." The low rumble of an approaching convoy echoed down the long driveway. My chest tightened, not with fear, but with anticipation. Richard Hayes and the rest of my family had accepted Ethan's invitation without realizing what they were walking into. They thought they were coming to another lecture, another chance to humiliate me. They had no idea they were stepping onto our property. Black SUVs slowed to a stop in front of the gates. Ethan signaled, and the iron barriers groaned open, revealing the grandeur behind them. The sprawling gardens, the ivory stone walls of the mansion, the sheer size of a world they had never associated with me. From the first SUV, my father stepped out, sunglasses perched on his nose, his arrogance intact. Behind him, my mother, Linda, smoothed her pastel jacket as if preparing for another polite performance. Brooke emerged in a fitted dress, her smirk already forming, while Daniel trailed. Close, his phone glued to his hand. Jessica and Andrew followed, whispering to each other with amused curiosity. Their laughter carried faintly as they began their approach. Ethan adjusted his cufflinks, his calm presence radiating control. I walked beside him, heels striking the stone path with purpose. Richard's voice cut through the air. "So this is where you work, Ethan? Quite the view. Didn't realize chauffeurs made enough to rent a place like this." The words hit like they were meant to bruise, but Ethan didn't blink. Instead, he smiled coolly and extended a hand. "Mr. Hayes, welcome to my home." The laughter died instantly. My father froze, his brow furrowing as he scanned Ethan's face for the joke. "Your what?" "My home," Ethan repeated calmly, his tone razor-sharp but polite. He turned slightly, gesturing to me. "Our home." A stunned silence rippled through the group. Brooke's mouth dropped open, and Jessica nearly tripped on the step leading up to the grand entrance. My father barked a short, disbelieving laugh. "You expect us to believe that?" He swept his arm toward the mansion towering behind us. "This place belongs to you two?" Ethan didn't flinch. "Believe it or not, Richard, the truth doesn't depend on your approval." Daniel finally looked up from his phone, his eyes wide. "Wait, are you serious? This is really yours?" Brooke scoffed, but her voice trembled. "No, there's no way. Madison couldn't possibly. She's been cleaning houses. I cut her off, my voice calm but sharp enough to pierce the morning air. "Yes, Brooke, I worked. I worked when none of you believed in me. I worked when you mocked me, when Dad turned his back, when Mom stayed silent. And while you were busy laughing, I was building a life with someone who never saw me as less." The words hung heavy in the air, silence pressing against them like a storm waiting to break. Richard's face darkened. "You dare to speak to me like that?" "Yes," I snapped, my composure finally cracking just enough for the fire beneath to show. My hands trembled, not with weakness but with power finally unleashed. "Because last night you called me a failure in front of everyone. You made me the punchline of your table, and now you stand at mine." Behind me, Ethan placed a steadying hand on my back, grounding me. His quiet strength said more than words ever could. Linda's lips parted, but no excuse came. Her gaze darted from me to Ethan to the mansion, disbelief tightening her features. Jessica whispered under her breath, "Oh my God," while Andrew shifted uncomfortably, unable to meet my eyes. I took a slow step forward, letting the weight of the mansion's shadow fall across my father's face. "You wanted me small, Dad. You wanted me silent. But silence doesn't mean surrender. It means patience, and patience built this." Richard's jaw tightened, his pride clawing for control even as his world tilted beneath him. Brooke's smirk had dissolved into pale disbelief, and Daniel swallowed hard, his arrogance draining like water from a broken glass. The gates clanged shut behind them, and for the first time in years, I wasn't the one trapped. I was the one holding the keys. Their laughter had died. Their confidence had crumbled. And standing in the doorway of the life they said I'd never have, I finally saw it in their eyes. Fear, envy, and the bitter realization that they had underestimated me. And that was only the beginning. The heavy doors of the mansion swung open, revealing a grand foyer lined with marble columns and chandeliers that glowed like captured starlight. My family stepped inside hesitantly, their shoes clicking against polished stone. Every detail, the sweeping staircase, the gallery of oil paintings, the scent of fresh lilies drifting from the hall, spoke of wealth they never imagined belonged to me. Brooke was the first to break the silence, her voice sharp with disbelief. "This is insane. Madison doesn't belong here." Ethan's expression stayed calm, but his tone cut deep. "Funny, because she belongs here more than anyone." Richard's jaw twitched as he scanned the room. His pride fought to smother his shock, but his eyes betrayed him. He was rattled. "This doesn't make you better than us," he spat. "Money doesn't erase who you really are." I turned to face him, my voice steady. "You're right. Money doesn't define me, but neither does your approval. I built this life not to impress you, but to free myself from you." The words hit harder than I expected. My mother, Linda, shifted uncomfortably, her eyes darting away like she'd rather melt into the marble floor. Jessica and Andrew whispered, in the corner, stunned into silence for once. Brooke's laugh was brittle. "Don't act like you're suddenly someone important. You'll always be the one who took the scraps, Madison. This mansion, it's Ethan's, isn't it? You just got lucky." Her voice echoed through the hall, dripping with envy and denial. Ethan stepped forward, his gaze locking on Brooke with quiet authority. "Everything here, Brooke, is ours. Madison built as much of this life as I did. She's not lucky, she's relentless. That's something you've never understood." The sting of his words silenced her. Her smirk faltered, replaced with a flicker of shame. Richard's temper finally boiled. He slammed his hand against the back of a velvet chair. "Don't speak to my daughter that way. This family, I cut in sharply, left me to carry humiliation for years. You mocked me last night in front of everyone, Dad, and you've been doing it my whole life. But here's the truth you can't laugh away anymore. I'm not beneath you. I never was." The air grew thick, every word pressing against their pride. Daniel finally stepped forward, his voice quieter, conflicted. "Maddie, why didn't you just tell us? Why keep all this a secret?" I looked at him, my anger softening just a fraction. "Because you never asked who I was becoming. You only reminded me of who you thought I'd always be." Silence followed. The chandelier's glow reflected off tear-pricked eyes. Linda's, surprisingly. She covered her mouth, staring at me like she was seeing me for the first time. But Richard? He wouldn't bend. His pride was too thick. His voice came low, seething. "You'll regret throwing this in our faces." I stepped closer, so close he had no choice but to meet my eyes. My voice lowered, cold and deliberate. "No, Dad. What I regret is wasting years waiting for you to see me. That ends today." Brooke inhaled sharply. Daniel looked down in shame. And Jessica whispered, "She's not the same person anymore." And she was right. The girl they mocked at the dinner table was gone. The woman standing in front of them, the woman who had endured, who had built her life brick by brick, was someone they couldn't break anymore. Ethan slipped his arm around me, grounding me in his warmth. "They've seen enough," he murmured. But I shook my head, my eyes never leaving Richard's. "No, they haven't even begun to understand. Because revenge wasn't just about showing them what I had. It was about showing them what they'd lost. And by the look in their eyes, they were finally starting to realize it. The weight of the silence pressed down on everyone in the room. My family, who once thrived on loud laughter and cutting remarks, now stood muted in the glow of the chandelier. Brooke's arms were crossed, her jaw tight, but her eyes darted across the marble floors and the grand staircase like she was trapped in a nightmare she couldn't wake from. Daniel fidgeted with his phone, pretending to check messages, though the tremor in his hand betrayed him. Jessica and Andrew clung to each other, their smugness dissolved. And my father, Richard Hayes, the man who had built a reputation on control, stood motionless, his pride leaking away with every passing second. Ethan's voice broke the silence, calm and steady, but heavy with meaning. Do you see now? This isn't luck. It isn't chance. It's the life we built while you mocked her. I stepped forward, my heels striking the polished floor with sharp echoes. Every eye followed me. My chest tightened, but my voice came strong, every word laced with years of pain and the strength that grew from it. You wanted to humiliate me last night, Dad. You wanted me small, powerless, someone you could laugh at in front of the family. But here you are, standing in my home, choking on the truth. Richard's lips pressed thin, his fists clenched at his sides. You think this makes you better than us? No, I said firmly. This doesn't make me better. But it proves I was never less. The words cut deeper than I expected. My mother's eyes filled with tears, and for a brief second, I saw regret flicker across her face. She whispered, almost to herself, "We didn't know." I turned to her, my tone softer but still unrelenting. You didn't want to know. You stayed silent every time he tore me down. Silence can hurt as much as cruelty. Linda's hand shook as she reached for her wine glass, her shoulders folding under the weight of truth. Brooke snapped suddenly, her voice breaking. So what? You've got a mansion, a rich husband, and now you think you can gloat? That doesn't change who you are. I locked eyes with her, my voice razor sharp. No, Brooke. What I have doesn't define me. But what I endured, and what I built from it, does. And it's something you'll never take away from me again. Her words died in her throat. Richard let out a harsh breath, desperate to claw back some control. We don't need your charity, Madison. Don't expect us to bow to you now. I stepped closer, inches from him, letting him feel the full force of my resolve. I don't want your gratitude. I don't want your approval. All I wanted was respect, and since you refused to give it, I claimed it for myself. Ethan's arm slipped protectively around my waist, his voice calm but final. You've overstayed your welcome. The words reverberated like a gavel striking. Down. One by one, my family began to retreat. Daniel shoved his phone into his pocket, avoiding my gaze. Jessica muttered something under her breath, pulling Andrew toward the door. Brooke glared, but the fire in her eyes was nothing but smoke now. Richard lingered, his face a storm of rage and disbelief. For years he had been the one in control, the one whose voice silenced the room. But now, his voice meant nothing. He looked around one last time, his pride shattered, before storming out into the daylight. The heavy doors shut behind them with a final, echoing thud. I stood in the center of the grand hall, my chest rising and falling, adrenaline coursing through me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trembling from humiliation. I was trembling from victory. Ethan leaned in, pressing a kiss to my temple. His words came soft, filled with pride. They'll never forget this moment. I smiled faintly, though tears threatened my eyes. Neither will I, because last night I had been the subject of their laughter. But this morning, I became the silence that crushed it.